You're very welcome to another MongoDB podcast. I'm Shane McAllister, and today we're diving into the future of work and how AI is helping us rethink the way we engage with our teams. And I have two great guests lined up to join me. My guests today are Zirian and Keith, founders of L10, a platform that's using AI to collect daily feedback and deliver real-time insights that helps managers before problems escalate. We'll talk about how L10 is transforming workplace culture, why silent quitting is a symptom of deeper issues, and how AI, when done right, can empower both managers and employees as well too. And we'll get a little bit of an understanding of how MongoDB supports the real-time infrastructure at L10. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Zirian and Keith, you're very welcome to the MongoDB podcast. How are you?
It's been great. Thank you for having us.
Yes, it's good.
It's great. And you're both joining us from Hong Kong. So I do appreciate you joining me. What is late in your day? And for our regular viewers, this is a much earlier episode than I usually do in the podcast. But hopefully we'll garner a different type of audience than we've had before, because we're in a much more kind of APAC friendly time zone. So I always love to start the show with a kind of understanding of kind of how our guests got here, their career path to date. And it's brilliant to have two founders on board. But if I could delve a little bit, starting with you first, Zirian, what did you study? What was your career? What led you to founding L10?
That's a good question, because that's usually what we share with our friends. So maybe I should start with how we met. So we are both from a very small island in Hong Kong called Changi. So that's why you can imagine we studied middle school, high school together. We studied university together. We studied computer science at University of Hong Kong. So I would say that. Oh, and also when we're in high school, we sit together. So the teacher put us together because I'm a bit more extroverted and Keith is a bit introverted. So it kind of like, the teacher loved to put like different personality people together. So we
brilliant. So you've got rid of one of my questions I usually ask co-founders is like, where did you meet? You guys have been together all the way up, right?
Yeah, it's been a very long time. And as we said, we studied computer science together. So we've been doing a lot of different projects, obviously our final year project and so on. But then because of that, we went into different paths. So Keith has been in tech, like in company like big corp like HSBC or startup like GoGoVan. And I've been I've done a few year programming as well in London, but later on I did a lot more in consultancy and design.
Okay. And Keith, obviously, we heard about the beginnings there and your pathway then through. And when did you both decide to do something together?
Yeah, I think it's maybe few years ago, and basically we have different career path before. And for me, I a typical software engineer and become a tech lead and in the software company or startup. And we found that we can do something for manager of the middle management to help them to kind of empower the team and build the better culture in the company. So we
I think Keith is slightly humble.
Yep.
So he joined a startup when it's 100 people, and they called GoGoVan, and they went IPO in 2022. So Keith experienced from 100 people all the way to like an IPO company. So he got a lot of stress because he used to manage like a small team. Later on, manage a bigger team as a tech lead. And later on, he realized, I really have to not only look at the skills of the people, but also the culture. But because we're a really good friend, back then I was in Berlin. I working for a company called Bain & Company. And I was, apart from my client work, I leading a really small team. We call it culture chapter internally. Basically is innovating the culture for internal consultant within Bain EMEA for the innovation team. So what I experienced is probably what Keith experienced as well, which is a lot of time we spend so much time on performance, on doing our work. But later on realize the biggest problem of why a team is not efficient is because the culture. We also shared that as well in the phone call, saying that for a tech lead or for a manager, your first priority should be make sure your people are happy and performing well. But a lot of time, because of our KPI, It's not. It's about revenue. It's about sales. It's about business win and outcomes. And for him, it's also during the IPO, there are a lot of other KPI come in, like investor expectation and so on. So we realized why, as a manager, when we manage a lot of people, but we don't put their priority as number one, and make us really struggle. And because of that reason, Keith quit GoGoVan way after IPO. I decided to quit together to found this company with him. And that's roughly about 2 years ago.
Excellent. So it was really borne out by world experience. The companies that you'd both had been in, the companies that you had both worked for, you had seen essentially, this problem or this pattern that, they don't check into regularly. Other things become more prominent than employee satisfaction or welfare or those sort of things. So you founded L10 when? 2023 then, was it? Or roughly?
Roughly that. So we decided to started our company late 2022, but we really started working full time, I think, during our time in Chile in 2023. I think a lot of founders did that as well, because we've been working for 15 years in Europe and Asia. So we decided to find a space that we are a bit away from our girlfriends and our friends. A bit more
focus on work.
Like all the founder story, you're trying to hide somewhere to build your product, test your product. So this is what we did before. We said that we've never been to Latin America. Why don't we try to find somewhere? We stay in a very small apartment, trying to build something out of nothing. So that's what we did. So we went to Chile in 2023, I think around March, and that's where we started our product.
Okay. Wow. I mean, like we all too often hear of startups and they're, young, early 20-somethings founders who can exist on a diet of pizza and Coke and live together, etc. But you guys were a bit older than that and a bit wiser, but you still said, right, if we're going to do this, we kind of need to do this 24/7. Let's abstract ourselves away from the interruptions and the distractions and go somewhere to do that. I think that's a superb idea. L10, what's the meaning behind the name of the company then?
That's also an other story. So our first name we have called teamculture.ai, because we believe that culture of a team is the most important part. So if you search L10, you will still see that we incorporate our name as teamculture.ai. The problem is a lot of managers, they think that culture is not my first priority, but people are. That's a really interesting concept that people think that culture is not equivalent to people. And they think that as a manager, culture is HR, is my leadership. But as we mentioned before, our main goal is to help every single manager, even the mid-level or high-level, they should focus on their people. So we realized this brand name is really hard to sell. And at that time, we're using a system called EOS. It's basically it's very simple. It's not really a system. Basically, every week we talk about our most important topic of our startup. And in this system, we call the most important meeting called L10, level 10 meeting. At this meeting, we talk about everything we think is important for our company. And at that time, we hire some freelance workers and realize we start to not focusing on because we are founders as well. The main goal is to make the product work. But later on, we realize even as founders, we prioritize our people. And we say that at our L10 meeting, we have to prioritize our people. And it makes us feel like that maybe for other company at their L10, they should not only talk about business wins, like what we did before, but they should also talk about the people. And that's how we think that maybe we should use a name that is not about culture, but it's more generic. And later on, we realized this name performed better because people think that what's L10? And we start to explain this story saying that people should be your first priority in your level 10 meeting. And they start to get it. Yes, that's the way we should be doing. And we realize it's a lot better than our original name, Team Culture, in selling. But our goal is basically still the same. And that's why we haven't changed our legal name. It's still teamculture.ai because in our heart, we still believe that we should keep the same mission, which is what everyone said, that, right? You should never change your mission from the moment you started your company. So that's why we still keep our incorporate name, teamculture.ai. But when we sell our product, we use the name L10.
I love it. That's a great story behind it. So level 10, it should be there at those. Your culture should be discussed at those sort of high level meetings. So that's brilliant. I think for anybody, and obviously we have a wide variety of people joining us on our live streams. But for anybody working in a company, they're very familiar with maybe twice a year, if they're very lucky, maybe every quarter. And so if they're not so lucky, just once a year, right? They have kind of these internal surveys, which are generally linked to their own performance and growth or promotions or salary increases, etc. as well too. And I suppose the key thing there is that, as we touched on the intro, that system is kind of broken. And as you said, as the experiences that you both had working in other companies, can you expand a little bit maybe on how that model doesn't work anymore for most companies?
So that's a really good question, because we didn't know before that as well. So when you start a startup, the first thing to do is to interview people, to ask them what their problems are. And because we are both from computer science background, so we decided to go after our friends. And they're all engineers. Right now, they're more like engineering lead, or some of them become a CTO of a big company as well. So we went to them saying that, as a tech lead or as a CTO, what's your biggest problem are when you manage your people? And they all say that HR actually give them a lot of data at tech leads, telling you how your team performed. The problem is HR only tell them once a year, because that's the only data point. I think a lot of you are familiar as well, right? They call them either engagement survey, satisfaction survey. Some of them even call them performance survey and so on. So a lot of companies will do it once a year, but that's already really lucky. In Hong Kong, Korea, which is some of our users located, some of them do it like only once every 2 to 3 years.
Oh,
so
wow.
As a tech lead, you will only hear from your leadership or HR saying that for the last 2 years, we found these problems. And they will be like, oh, but it's last 2 years, but our company is already completely different. What should we do right now? And the responsibility from the HR become from the team lead. But for you, you never really get the feedback from your team apart from one-on-one. And for one-on-one, it's mainly identify feedback, we call them, which is, I can't give you anonymous feedback as an employee or as a direct report. Sometimes I just a bit worried, right? Especially right now in Europe, a lot of people worry about diversity issues affecting their workspace. Especially in tech, like a lot of women engineers that we interview, they actually very sad about the situation, because it's very, very hard. One of our users in the UK, they're like having a ratio of 10-1, which is one female to 10 engineer in the same team. And it's really hard for them to become really themselves, to work very hard, but the company only collect feedback once a year, and that's very hard. And because of that very reason, we decided to find a solution that maybe we can help them to get more feedback more frequently, but not only once a year, like most company in the world.
Okay. And I mentioned the word kind of silent quitting on the introduction, which was born out of the conversation you and I, Zirian, had, prepping for this. The silent quitting or the low engagement, and if they're only doing it once a year or even worse, companies are completely missing out on that kind of feedback. And that's what's happening, right?
Yeah, so this is something that we realize in a lot of countries. I'll tell you something very interesting that we learned from the last half a year. We started, we also incorporated in South Korea. And South Korea is like a lot of European countries that you can't just fire your low performers. And a lot of time in Asia or in the US, you may heard about that as well. If you find your team have some high performers, you try every way to keep them. You try to promote them and so on, give them more bonus. But a lot of time for low performers, they don't have a lot of help. So a lot of companies kind of ignore them. But you know that if you're an engineer, you know that there's no such thing as low performer for your whole life. You're a low performer because your environment doesn't suit you, because the task you're working on is not very exciting. It's different from what you expected before you join a company, and so on. But in Korea and in Europe, the company just can't fire this low performer. And this low performer, they think that if my company ignore my feedback, what I'm going to do is I'm just not going to work very hard. And we all experienced that before. It's like, if I have a lot of feedback, my company don't listen to me. Maybe I just don't work too hard. I just become so-called a silent quitter. I just do my day-to-day work. I don't innovate. I don't do extra miles. And that's actually not the employee suffering, because the employee can also find another job, spend more time with the family and so on. But the company losing a lot, because you're supposed to have a very hard worker working for you, or as a team manager, you're supposed to have a team that work very, very collaboratively. But now there's some people, they never respond to Slack messages. They never learn more new things from the company. And that's become the biggest loss for the company. And we realized from a lot of research like McKinsey and so on, they realized silence quitter being the biggest factor for the company to lose on profit and to become the biggest problem for the team. Because if you have one silence quitter, you start to see that, oh, maybe I don't have to respond to team messages anymore. Maybe I shouldn't talk to team members anymore. And it's become a very big thing. So this is the main problem we want to solve. We want to not only help the manager to find out who the low performers are, but our goal is to help these people, the people who don't like to work in this company, to have better life in their company. Because we believe that everyone should kind of like contribute to the work and they shouldn't just hate their jobs.
Yeah, I think it's a great, you know what I mean? It's a great goal to have. And how much, like, I know you found it in 2023 when we were coming out the tail end of COVID, but obviously, you know, that would have had an effect, as you read a lot on people's morale and companies' morale. And, you know, remote working, for all its benefits as well too, also has its downsides of, you know, lack of interaction, not building team culture, etc. How did that play into this scenario of kind of not having engaged employees, or did it? Or did that help things in terms of kind of companies understanding, you know, that this was key and crucial? Because employees are the company's best and biggest resource, right? It's probably their biggest expense maybe as well too. And you need to have the right engaged employees on board and kind of do everything you can to make sure that they're comfortable and happy, right? And performing, obviously.
So this is another thing that Keith and I debate quite heavily these days as well, because for the last 10 years, I've been in consultancies, and for consultants, a lot of them are very extroverted. We're trained to be a bit more outspoken. So when I see a problem, I have to say it. It's like the company trained us to do that. There are a lot of training programs to do that. Yes. But Keith remind me, when I was an engineer myself, it's not the case. A lot of time when I was an engineer, I didn't really spoke out a lot. When I see some problem, I wouldn't just say it. And when my manager come to me, I wouldn't do that as well. I would keep it to myself. And realize in our research, when we talk to engineers, designers, and our project managers as well, they are not used to just in a town hall with 1,000 people tell the leadership what's the problem are. Or even in one-on-one, they don't do that as well. And we realize they appreciate a lot other method to provide feedback. Like one company we interviewed, they have like a little shoe box, and you can put like enormous feedback in it. Yeah. And realize the energy is a lot higher when they have that. And a lot of companies think that if I have that, a lot of people are going to complain a lot. But actually not. We believe that, maybe we're Chinese as well, we believe that people are nice when they're born. So a lot of time, a lot of people, even though they want to complain, but the intention are normally good. Because if you don't want to complain anymore, likely that you can't save the person anymore. So when they still want to complain, meaning that they still have a passion, they want to change the company. So that company have a sweet spot. They receive a lot of negative feedback, but they realize this negative feedback actually is solvable. A lot of them are very simple as well. Like, I don't mind to work overtime a lot when deadline hits, but when it's not, when there's no deadline, maybe allow us to do more innovation to really help the company to become, to change it. Like using more new technology to save for time and so on. Maybe Keith, you observe that as well. So that's why I realized one of very good way to address the silence creator problem is just to create a space for them to share the feedback. Especially for the introverted ones.
No, I hear you. I mean, I think that a lot of people have, you know, who seem to be outspoken, maybe just have the best interests of their colleagues and the company at heart, and they just want to make things better, and they're very kind of invested in, you know, their career and their role and their company. So I do like that. I know we're going to have a demo later on of the L10 platform where a lot of this will make a ton of sense. But let's talk a little bit about L10 and how this system works to capture that sort of insight and to surface those insights from employee feedback. Tell me a little bit about that mechanism. We've talked about how infrequent normal companies do that. How frequently does L10 get employee feedback?
So right now, what we do it. We collect 5 feedback every single week. We call them the weekly check-ins.
Okay.
So normally the employee or the team member will spend 5 minutes to answer 5 questions. Most of them are open-ended questions because that's allowed them to say whatever they want. And with weekly 5 feedback, we collect around 150 to 200 checkpoints of every single person. And these checkpoints are either anonymous or identified. And anonymous feedback mostly is about diversity problems, psychological safety. A lot of that is about leadership feedback because these are supposed to be protected. So we don't let identity information, and they can just click a link. Everyone will have the same link to answer these anonymous feedback.
Okay.
But obviously, in order for the manager to help individual person, we also have some identified feedback where you have to share identity with your own manager. For example, like what have you achieved this week? Who in your team helped you before? So it's a bit like a mix of self-reflection and 360 review in a lot of company. And you imagine our goal is to try to replace 3 annual things a lot of companies doing. One is the annual survey is a bit about engagement or diversity. And these normally a company would do 50 to 100 questions every year. About 30 minutes a year. Second is 360 review. In order to save time, a lot of companies will only ask you to give feedback to 5 people, which is very biased and kind of picky about who to give feedback as well. But for us, we're trying to encourage people to give feedback to their colleagues whenever they feel like. And lastly is the weekly check-in on self-reflection. That's something we only realized from last year. We realized a lot of managers, especially when we were a new manager like 10 years ago, what we do is, when I walk in a one-on-one, tell me about what you've done this week. And the whole thing is becoming a reporting one-on-one instead of like a coaching one-on-one. And a lot of managers, they don't know how to fix it. A lot of them, they're new managers. They were like, isn't one-on-one supposed to be my direct report, tell me everything they've done this week? But that's really not the good way, because in a one-on-one, the time is very valuable. The reporting can be done in advance. So what we do is basically want to move this reporting system to like the weekly 5-question check-in. So in the one-on-one, it's really all about coaching. It's really all about, as an employee, I can be emotional I can be vulnerable with my manager. They can share whatever they feel like. So this is what we do. So we actually collect a lot more feedback than only the survey, the traditional survey, but also we collect other types of feedback in a weekly setting.
Okay. I'm smiling because I'm very familiar with this. I'm very familiar with all the negative things that you say. You know, it's not frequent enough. It's the one-on-ones is a reporting, all of that. I'm not saying current company accepted and all of that good stuff, but I think all companies can do this better. And, you know, I really love the approach that yourself and Keith have taken towards this. So how do you make the employee fill this in? Is it just part of their daily routine? Is it integrated with other products like Slack, etc.? What prompts them to do this as frequently as you need it?
So maybe I ask you to make a guess. So do you know what's the biggest reason an employee don't answer a survey, or what's the biggest reason why they just randomly answer a survey if they were forced?
Put me on the spot, Syrian. I would say because they've done it a few times and they don't see any follow-up or outcomes from doing it, and then they just get fed up doing them. Would that be on the right track?
Exactly the reason. I think hopefully you've done some research, or you just knew from your heart. So
it's not on me now. I'm just giving a general answer.
But this is like the biggest answer in the last 20 years. The reason never changed for the last 20 years. The biggest reason why employees don't want to answer surveys because they think that it's useless for them to answer because company not going to change it anyways.
Right.
And if you I think Son, you manage people and so on, you realize the company actually want to change it. A lot of leadership, they put that in the even shareholder report for a lot of listed company. But the problem is they don't know how to do it. And imagine that if you only collect feedback once a year and you want to change it, what you're going to fix is actually yesterday's problem. It's not today's problem.
Yes,
And
very good.
from the
Yeah.
employee point of view, they don't see that. They don't know the company is actually changing it. But 1 year later, maybe you already quit the company and so on.
Okay.
But what we do is basically we change it to deliver the feedback to the leadership, we deliver to the middle management. And as a manager, like myself, I can change the employee experience on my team. Like when I hear that today, I can do something today.
Yes, yes.
And when we collect feedback in real time, like just now we said weekly, and some users using our platform even on a daily basis. Just now later I can show you the demo, which is we set it as a daily basis. We ask one question a day instead of 5 questions every week. That you can really make changes every single day. And we realize when the employee see changes, when they see that the company or the manager actually adopt what they complain about, what they really want the company to change, they will answer more feedback. Does it make sense? The response rate goes up as they see the problem they propose solved. This is what we find that why the response rate of our user using our platform is higher than a lot of annual survey platform, because they actually see the problem solved.
Yeah, I think that's great. And look at, and I think it will probably engender even more trust in the platform if the feedback you're giving is being actioned and stuff is happening and that's improving. Then you're kind of going, look, they're listening, it's working, I'm going to participate even more. I suppose, is there any concern from employees about what they're being asked to share might be used against them or anything like that if they're trying to be super honest on the platform?
So this is a problem we observed before. So people trying to be like protecting themselves. Everyone would do that. So let's say if someone find that it's for me, then does it affect my promotion? Or does it
of course, that's a natural concern, right? Yeah.
But we realize a lot of problems that company facing is actually every employee will complain. A lot, like I told you about the diversity example, sometimes about burnout and so on. We realize the employee wouldn't tell 100% of the truth. So they wouldn't say that, oh, this week I work until like 11 p.m. every night. So they would say that, oh, they would be a bit more mild, like, oh, we experience a lot of burnout and overwork. But because our AI can recognize these themes, right now I knew that a lot of people using MongoDB are very familiar with AI. So it just we're using our AI agent to find out the themes and realize they share 100% feedback, and they just have to share some like general observation. That's the first thing. But the second thing is we try to be transparent. So as an employee, they can go into our platform, see exactly what the manager is seeing. And once we implement this feature, we see two effects. One is the employees are a lot happier because they know that, oh, what I'm sharing is actually protected.
Yes.
But another problem is a lot of enterprises, they don't like it. So they'll be like, oh, but we still want to secretly find out who they are. And I think you know that as well. Like a lot of time when we email our colleagues, a lot of people think that email are completely protected, but actually no, a lot of corporate, they will go into email to find out like what kind of email you sent before, or even go into Slack so they can find out your messages as well. But because of that, they would try to be like, oh, probably I should use something else. So that's why in Asia, like Hong Kong, Japan, and Korea, a lot of people, they don't use email to communicate on work basis. They will use WhatsApp. They will use Line or work.
All right.
That's guaranteed the company cannot find it out because they use a personal number. So that's in our case, because a lot of user base in Asia. So we were like, what if we just make it like 100% transparent? So as an employee, you can even log into a platform and so on. They can see whatever.
So you can see what the manager sees. So what the tool is surfacing up on their behalf, but anonymized and things like that.
Exactly. So this is how we're trying to attempt to solve this problem. But even though they don't, we think that, and also another thing we do is we don't do 1 to 5. So right now, most of the employee survey, they ask you a question like from 1 to 5, how much do you think that the leadership helping you to do your job? And because from 1 to 5, a lot of employee will be like, oh, I can do like 4 or 5 or 2. But from a leadership point of view, because when I was a consultant, we realized a lot of company, they don't know the reason behind. So let's say if you have a score saying that your company psychological safety is only from 2 out of 10. But you don't know the reason behind, you don't know what to do with it, and you don't know how to solve the problem. And with our platform, we really want to embrace open-ended question so the employee can actually answer like very long answer. And we have a feature that I'm going to show you later as well. We can help them to change or rephrase the sentences so that the manager wouldn't know like who wrote this feedback and so on, which is a very small feature that inspired by one of our users. But we really
it makes sense though, because if you know the individuals and you're presented with some content from each of them on your team, you know them well, you can usually guess who wrote what, so even if it is anonymized.
I'll show you later how we do that in the demo.
Perfect. And I suppose, look, obviously I've done a lot of the live streams when we're talking about AI, and the common question that comes up is AI is going to replace jobs, etc. But it's really good to see L10 using AI for employee and empowerment, etc. I'd like to get a little technical if I could, and perhaps Keith, for you, is kind of what's the architecture underneath L10? Where does MongoDB fit in? How does AI fit in? What models are you using, etc.? Give us a high level of that. I know we'll see the product in action in a while, but how does that work?
Okay. Basically, architecture is very simple for us. We basically is a AI agentic system that you can imagine there's a backend serving some API for the front end call, and then in the back end there's a lot of things happens, like they will trigger some agentic workflow that process the data and also answer the user's inquiry. And basically in the past we are trying different kind of database, like the relational database. Honestly, is the RDS from the AWS, and that's the difference between the RDS and the MongoDB, because MongoDB is a flexible data model database. And we found that basically MongoDB suits us more because as a startup, we need to react fast to maybe the user request or the feature changes. With a flexible data model provided by MongoDB, it's very easy for us to support the new features. Comparing to the past, we need a very rigid database migration process if we're using the relational database. And another thing, I think the MongoDB is good for us is they basically can store every type of data in one data model. Like for a data agentic model, we basically need some vector embeddings. And MongoDB basically can store the normal data and as well as the vector database into the same model. It's really help us to enhance the user experience. Like we can build a search function on top of that. And MongoDB basically also offer a very good search functionality out of the box. Like I can give you an example. Because for the AI application, sometimes the user will type into the AI chatbot and then ask us maybe getting the user information or getting some information from a database. And sometimes it will have some typo in the works. And MongoDB, basically, there is a fuzzy search function out of the box, and it basically helps us to very easy to identify which record in the database, and you can retrieve it very easily. And also the hybrid search and the vector search from MongoDB basically help us to not only search with the vector, we can also search with some semantics or some keyword search.
Yeah, I have to mention about the out-of-the-box feature, because as a startup, I probably not only startup, in big corporate as well, a lot of time we don't want to do innovation, and we don't want to spend a lot of resources just to build a feature out. We want to test it out. But you know that when I used to be a designer, so I know that a lot of time we're just trying to test with like Figma prototype and so on, but it's actually not collecting the actual user feedback. But what we like about MongoDB is there are a lot of out-of-the-box solutions. So in the beginning, we want to realize, oh, this feature could be very useful for our users. Let's just, instead of just Figma prototype for like 2 months, why don't we just build it out with the out-of-the-box MongoDB feature that adopt our AI model? And that's very easy for us to build a feature in a week or two, and then we can get like real-time feedback, actual feedback from the user before we make it more complicated. And the second part is actually less about engineering, but maybe about that as well. A lot of our users are from engineering teams, because our tool is really, really useful for engineers to share the feedback. A lot of them are outspoken, as I said before. And before you use MongoDB, a lot of people don't know how our architecture like. They don't trust that we store data very safely. And we're trying to be scalable as well. So when we tell them now, oh, remember we share with a listed company in Taiwan, they started to use our service. And it's the AI team using our product. And the reason they trust us because they know that, oh, we're using MongoDB now, and we share about technical stuff and so on. And that's really not only helping us to develop, but also help us with the branding, that they trust that you're a serious startup. You're not a startup that's going to close in 2 years. And that song as well. MongoDB is not the cheapest software in the world. So when you use it, a lot of people will trust that, oh, you're actually being serious about your product. You're not trying to build something for the future. So that's obviously not entirely about engineering, but also about our branding and business.
Excellent. Well, listen, I think that those answers, particularly from you, Keith, over and what you added at the end, Zirian, over the last 6 or 7 minutes, I think are going to have to cut that piece of audio and send it upwards inside MongoDB. Great pitch for MongoDB. You covered everything, like the flexible data, all the data types, the fact that we have your data and vector work together, the fact that you've got search and fuzzy search built in, hybrid search as well too. That's a great pitch, and I don't have to do anything. You did it all for me.
We've been a big fan of MongoDB for a while.
Basically, it really helped us.
Had you used MongoDB before you formed L10? Had you used it in other companies?
No, but I used MongoDB for some prototyping.
Okay.
Before.
Excellent. Well, listen, it's great to hear, that it really helped you. And you talked a little bit about scale, Keith, there when you were chatting. How does how does MongoDB help support that in terms of the scale that you might need as you roll out with new clients?
Basically, I like the toolings from MongoDB. It's very easy for me to track the performance of the query, or they provide a kind of, I think, quite good monitoring features provided by the MongoDB. And I use the most is basically Gen AI features to generate the aggregation pipeline, and it basically help us to scale because sometimes we need to have a very performance based, or we concern the performance of how we query data out. Actually, these kind of features help us a lot.
Okay, excellent. And look, I know that people are coming in on the chat as well too. It's great to see everybody saying hello. Please, if you missed the beginning, if you have any questions for Zirian or Keith, just drop them in there. You probably will once we get to have a quick look at the demo. Before we do that, just in terms of the AI, obviously MongoDB is a vector store, but we don't do the embeddings or anything on our side. We don't have LLM. So whose products are you using on that side of things then?
You mean the embedding part? Basically, we left different LLM like Cohere, like Claude. We use that API to get the embedding and put it into the MongoDB.
Okay.
I think we use quite a variety of things. Unfortunately, our head of AI cannot join the call today. We also try with quite a lot of the model. We try a lot of different model. And also the reason I want to say that is because we change quite frequently. That we used to be considering fine tuning. We tried that as well. It's very expensive. We consider how about we just build our own model based on the existing model and so on? It's also very expensive. And based on the development for AI, we realized that we can't be just make sure that like yesterday we may use Cohere. We realized another LLM has become a lot better right now. So that's why we're trying to be a lot more flexible, that we don't want to say that, oh, today we're using these 4 models and tomorrow we won't using others. We realize we have to be catching up with the trend. And people keep saying that, right? Right now, I think everyone say that as well. Maybe 2 years ago, it's really good for fine-tuning. But at the very moment right now, fine-tuning may not be that efficient, because by the moment you spend all the money and resources on fine-tuning, there will be way better solution out there that we can leverage as a small startup. And we're not big enough to have like 2,000 people doing fine-tuning and buy all the hardware right now. So I think so that's why we're trying to be humble and flexible at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good approach. I think, I'm still constantly amazed at how quickly things move in this space. And look, we've been involved in projects and fine-tuning, mostly at the kind of code level, in helping, I suppose, some of the major LLM providers out there be better at MongoDB. So to understand it, we're giving it some, data sets for training. We're then running them through evaluation sets ourselves to make sure it's having an effect. But I fully agree that the pace of things that are moving, if you were to go down the fine-tuning route, and the time and effort and resources that takes, then the next week a new model comes out that does your job for you. It's just money down the drain, basically. Brilliant. I think we've got a really good overview of the problems that you're trying to solve and how you're going about it. But picture speaks 1,000 words. So I think it's probably very timely maybe to jump into L10 and show our viewers, how the system works in the background as well too. So maybe let's get the demo up, and you can talk us through that.
Okay, so we prepare a very small demo, and the reason we share this one because we realize a lot of people joining the podcast are tech manager. And the reason we say that because we're trying to create a situation like if you're a tech manager, you're not the leadership of a team, or if you're leadership of a team, you can use it like this way as well. But let me explain to you. So for a platform, let's say if you're a manager, what you want to know is how your team performing and how individual persons performing. So I'm going to talk about these 2 parts first. Perfect. So on the left-hand side is all the feature we provide. It's a bit overwhelming as a new manager, but if you have been a manager for more than 10 years, I think you're familiar with a lot of terms here already. But let's go into the right part, which is very easy to understand. This part is about your team analytics. Okay. We share with you how your team performing in terms of performance and engagement. And the most important part we realize is response rate. And a lot of managers, you may know as well, that if the people are very involved in a company culture, they tend to answer more questions. So a lot of HR field leaders, they know that the response rate and the sick leave, which is another topic we can share later as well, is basically indicating the future retention rate. The more people respond, the more likely the people are very engaged and performing very well. So that's why we think that this feedback is very, very useful for a lot of people to understand. But obviously, apart from this, we have another 2 parts. Let's go to engagement. For engagement, basically it tells you how your team are they happy, are they engaged, and this very much influencing how well they perform. So the majority of people checking engagement is with one question. We call them the eNPS. Let me scroll to the bottom and show you. Okay. So eNPS is the biggest index most companies using right now to calculate the loyalty of employee. Basically, ask them one question. From 1 to 10, how likely are you going to recommend this company to another friends or colleagues? Okay. It's a recommendation question. So I'm very familiar with this question because they were invented by Bain more than 50 years ago. And it's still the most commonly used metrics in the world. And there's good and bad about this question. One is very easy to understand, very easy to implement, because you just have to ask one question. The problem is, even everyone say, yes, I will recommend this company. You don't know why. And second is...
Yeah, there's no why. You're right.
My 9 and Keith 9 is different. I used to live in Germany, so I got trained to be a bit harsh. I would never answer 9 on a questionnaire. To be fair, it's very, very hard for me to do
Things
that.
can always be better. Yeah.
But because Keith, it's been working in Hong Kong for the last like decade. For him, it's very generous. He was like, "Oh, 9 is actually okay. I will always put 9 and 10." We talked about this topic before, and this question creates a dynamic that if you're from different culture and background, you have to actually see the number differently. But in EMPS, 9 to 10 mean you love the company.
Okay.
7 to 8 is like you don't really love the company, you don't really like the company, and 0 to 6 means you hate the company. So we believe that this question, good thing is very easy to implement and understand, very easy to calculate in the old days, but it's actually not very fair for a lot of companies and teams. So that's why we still keep it, because a lot of companies still use it. You can still include this question in your weekly feedback. But what's more important is everything above. So that's why it's a bit overwhelming. We try, because with AI, with a lot of categorization, and with Gen AI, it's very smart right now. We can do a lot more. So the first one we call engagement score, which is our AI will look into every single feedback from every single person in your team to tell you how happy they are with the current situation. And you may ask, how do we do that? We combine quite a lot of different things like sentiment analysis, how happy they are, how happy the emotion in the sentences, the intensity of the emotion, and also how they respond to different questions. So let's say if I ask you how much you don't like your leadership, and if you say no, it seems very negative, but it's actually a yes in English, right? So you can't just analyze the answer. You have to adapt to the context of what's going on of the question as well. So basically, so that's why I won't say that it's just a simple sentiment analysis, because you can't just do that. But you may ask, right, with this score, how can I solve the problem? What should I do with it? So this is why we do classification. Keith talked about embedding before. With the current MongoDB structure, it's actually a lot easier for us to do the classification. So we classify the categories the company want us to do. But for most, they just use a default 9 category, which is the most recommended method in the world for culture analysis. That separate into, does this employee align with company purpose? Do they love about the leadership? And so on. And we have to categorize different part, how much they like about the company, how much they are happy with the company. And obviously, I'm not going to show you all the details, but basically, if you click into individual category, we show you even more analytics of what's going on within each categories, so that as a team manager, they will know how to solve the problem, to address the problem.
Okay.
And the second part is about performance. So basically, this is like how many self-reflection we receive and how many peer recognition we receive. And obviously, the more feedback you receive, the more interaction between people, the better your team is. But I don't want to go too much into only team analytics, because as a team manager, your number one goal is to take care of every individual person. So that's why I realized this is actually the third important thing in our platform, based on our usage.
So you've got your dashboards, and that can surface up the high-level info quite quickly, but it's really lower than that where you're going into the team members. Okay, gotcha.
Exactly. The main part is the team member. As a manager, your number one goal is to make sure every single person is happy. With only the genetic overview, that's very useful for leadership. So that's why our user, if they're leadership like HR, they really like to go into this tab. But for today, as I mentioned before, is mainly for the manager. So I really want to show you other feature. The first one, we call them the attrition risk. So this one is basically to understand if this employee leave the company.
Okay.
Yeah. So we calculate the score and the reason based on a lot of different methods. So basically, we tell you the reason behind as well. So a lot of employee, actually, you may ask the question, right? Do the employee want to let you know I'm going to quit? So actually, a lot of employee, they don't want to tell you. They don't want to tell you like, I want to quit like tomorrow. But they don't mind to tell you about the intention they want to leave a company because of different reasons. And we believe that if the employee already looking for jobs, they're already interviewing for 10 jobs, it's actually quite late for you to solve the problem. You should solve the problem when they have the intention. Because when they start to, maybe there's some jobs online. Maybe I should go to the jobs tab on LinkedIn to see anything happening. So what we do here is basically that. We tell you if they have the intention to start looking for jobs. So that's why a lot of managers use it as when they see the severity middle or high, we recommend them to just start using this as a one-on-one template to start to talk to the employee. What's
Okay.
going
And is
on?
that built out of the using the AI for the sentiment over all of the answers that employee has submitted over the
Yeah,
time?
it's basically we extract the insight, the sentiment from let's say you're the employee, you get a self-reflection, and you get the feedback from maybe your manager, maybe your direct report and your peers. And also we collect some appreciation data. And all the data, we can extract the insights and we extract sentiment, and then we can know basically how possibility that they will leave the company.
Okay. And it's good to see Zirian showing up as low there, because it'd be terrible if you were going to not be interested in the company that you're the CEO of.
Yeah, but this is like basically we see that it's very, very useful. But you may ask, right, what if I read this? I still want to know more, like why they're not happy or why they're very happy. Then you can go into individual person, which is what we call one-on-one evaluation. So for example, maybe I just go into here. For one-on-one evaluation, a lot of people say that, oh, maybe they are not my direct report. What if they're like my reports of reports? A lot of people in the line, they may manage teams of teams. So you can basically do that as well. And let's say for this example, so we go into like Daniel or James, we go to James. So let's go to James. You will see that there are more like reasonings and analytics about this person. And as I mentioned, this is transparent between James and the manager. And we see that the performance score based on monthly evaluation that I'm going to share later as well, but they also respond where James can put on objectives that, you know, OKR and so on, and our AI will analyze it as well. We saw that some people use this feature, but not like everyone loves OKR in the world, but we're not going to cover that right now. But we have this feature, like James feedback in the last 90 days. And these, as I mentioned, is all identified data. So if James submit enormous feedback, you wouldn't see it here because we don't store it in our database as well. And also 360 feedback, we call them, basically peer feedback. The feedback that James received from the subordinates, from the leadership, or from the peers. Basically, everyone can give feedback to James. And because of that reason, we can go into the analytics of James. Because this feature is mainly for manager. So as a manager, I'll be like, oh, I want to do a one-on-one with James right now. And you're going to click this button. And once you click it, you will see a one-on-one evaluation based on the feedback James received and provided this period of time. And also based on James' previous one-on-one report and the one-on-one note. As a manager, you can put it here as well. Then based on all this feedback, we're going to provide at the manager the theme you should cover with your subordinates. Like for James, we believe that you should cover these topics. There's some gaps that you should cater right now. What kind of things that they want to develop, like area of improvements, and also the overall evaluation as well. And this is basically a summarization from the technical point of view based on all the feedback we provided, all the feedback we summarized and analyzed. But we realize this is the most important feature that for especially new manager, they really need that to guide them to do one-on-one, because they basically create this create the topics for one-on-one based on all these synthesis that we provide.
Okay, very powerful insights there, and I suppose very, very helpful to, I suppose, get the most out of your interactions with the people who are reporting to you, and to help the manager kind of understand the key concerns. Because as we said in the introduction, those one-on-ones can, you know, all too often just be a reporting function as opposed to an enablement function like this.
Yeah. So this is basically what we realize is very useful. But the last thing I want to show you is about the question. So the question we basically customize for individual people. Our head of people used to be the head of HR in AWS, Hong Kong and Taiwan. So to work with the industry expert to help us to create some question, we believe that for small and medium company is really, really useful to ask. But also we work with, as I mentioned before, some listed company as well. We tailor a question for them. But there are three types of questions we ask. The first type we call them engagement anomalous question that we covered in the conversation before. Second one is self-reflection, mainly around the goals, the skill, habits, roadblocks, and so on for the subordinate to answer. And then the very last bit is the 360 review a lot of companies call them 360 feedback, which is you can get a appreciation feedback, peer feedback, upward feedback, and so on.
Okay.
And we have one more thing, which is what we realize a lot of people start to use it. We call them the monthly evaluation, which is a lot of managers, we actually forgot to evaluate our employee regularly. We only do it once a year. And that's not fair because a lot of people, they may not perform very well in Q4, but they actually perform very well in Q1 to 3. But because all the managers, all the leadership, they evaluate their employee only on Q4, you have a habit that people suddenly become hardworking only on Q4. I think you've seen that before as well. And realize not only the employee don't like it, the manager don't like it too. So everyone don't like it, right? And we believe that monthly or even frequent evaluation is a lot more helpful. So a lot of managers using our platform to draft the yearly performance review report to the HR, saying that you shouldn't just look into the annual review by the end of the year. Also do it like very regularly. So we ask a question like this. So it's like basically 1 to 5, rate your employees, and also you can provide open-ended question and feedback as well. Because of this reason, that's why you saw that we have a lot of performance score in our platform, but it's entirely optional. So every feature here optional. Maybe you only do monthly evaluation, you only do weekly check-in. But basically, our goal is to provide as many data sources as possible to collect feedback and provide like comprehensive analysis for the manager to do a better job. But again, like because of the time, we don't have time to show you how company HR and how company leadership would use our platform. But as we mentioned, our main goal is to empower the managers. So we spend majority of our time to build a better manager tool instead of like a HR tool. And most people using our platform, they don't think it's a HR tool. They think that it's like a manager empowering tool.
Yeah, it's a nice way to phrase it. And it's been very clear as you walk through all the sections as well. I suppose, is there, not naming any names or anything, but can you give an example of like where you did roll out L10 within a company and within a short space of time, they surfaced up feedback that they otherwise would never have seen or come across with their employees?
I think maybe, which company we should use an example? Maybe like this startup in Korea. We really like to work with them because I think we realize a lot of people, they provide feedback in the company, and we saw that. Let me go to the feature and show you and make it more visual, as we mentioned before.
Sure.
So let me go into the analytics and engagement. So I think I can say a lot of your example, like running better one-on-one, reducing retention, reducing all this number. But a lot of people, they are actually not interested as a number. What they really want to know is the actual use case. And what we realize is, apart from the number, our most important part is reminding the manager what they should be aware of. And like when we go into heat map, I remember one person we talked to is like, I didn't know that as a manager, I have to take care of all these things. They said that I heard about psychological safety, and they realized this is a really key problem for the company. The people don't feel psychologically safe to share the feedback. And I feel like this is basically our biggest learning, is that our platform is not only a number, they call them, how to call them HR software, a metric dashboard. Like it's not all numbers. A lot of time for us is about the qualitative feedback and qualitative results. So that's why I think that our biggest learning is that we're trying to not only be a platform to give them number, but also kind of like educate them or providing them more tips to become a better manager. So that's why right now we start to have some feature like, let me go into, I think it's in one-on-one and here, like as a manager, you will see that how you can better review the objectives as a teaching materials. And we generated these with AI and we personalized for individual person as well. As an employee, as you write down your objective, the AI will guide you more about how to write better objectives. We believe that this actually bigger feedback, bigger learning from this company. But obviously, if you want to learn about the number, we help some people to increase like retention quite quickly, not only in year, but in weeks. They also like receive increased response rate and so on. But what I think our biggest learning is that we actually educate the manager to become better manager. It's not only about performance score. but also all the other aspects as a better manager.
So the managers are becoming better managers. Is there, in the companies that you've rolled this out in so far, is there any trends or patterns emerging that surprised you, perhaps, in the sort of feedback the system is surfacing? Is there anything you kind of, I think, as you might have said, some things of the feedback have made you build new features to be able to accommodate that as well too, right?
I want to share a mistake that surprised me a lot. Initially, we believed that the best way to ask a question is the AI to understand individual person, understanding what you need. Our AI decide who to ask, what to ask, at what time.
All right. Okay.
We believe that AI should be very smart and do everything for you, which we do. Like we believe that everyone's a different question. But we realize people are very scared of uncertainty. As a manager, I don't want to know, like, I don't want to be like, for tomorrow, I don't even know what my employee, what my team is answering. So later on, we realize we can't just let AI to do every single work, which is like, maybe we talk on this topic as well. AI is really hard to replace 100% of human being work because of this reason. So later on, we realize this problem when we create a new feature called question sequence. You can turn it on. Once you turn it on, you can set the question, what question to ask the individual person every single day. For example, for tomorrow, you're going to ask this question because our AI believe that you should ask more 360 feedback, you don't receive it enough. But maybe you will be like, oh, I don't like that. I want to ask another question like this one.
Okay.
So on. You can see that now, instead of just let AI doing every single thing, what we believe that we should do, but we realize we should let human being to do some choices. And this is we realize helping a lot of people understand what kind of question they ask. And also basically we provide more feedback like this question only 4 people respond, but this question actually a lot of people respond. It's a good question, or they actually have a lot of feedback on it. Maybe you can see some pattern from there as well. So this is like what we learn is like, we shouldn't just allow AI to make all decisions.
Definitely not. And I suppose, look, perhaps maybe falling into you don't want AI to reshape management altogether and automate it all. It is a personal thing after all. That's the whole reason the one-on-ones exist. But obviously AI is, as through your example there, the sentiment, pulling everything together, etc. It's really, being the backbone of L10, it's really helping build the platform. What do you think what's the most exciting thing in AI? I ask all our guests this question that, you think is coming down the tracks. You mentioned agentic at the beginning as well, too. I know a lot of my guests will answer that at the moment. Anything else from both of you for that?
Do you want to answer that? Or I can share as well. So, like last week, I was in London and I was in a conference, and a lot of people saying that, agentic AI is over. It's been a few months. It's moving too fast. It's been a big topic. Everyone talk about it. And the reason we still talk about agentic AI because I think it's easier to explain a line of work, and because it's basically what we use is most AI companies do. We do multimodal, multi-AI, and we're trying to use different agentic AI to solve different problems. And for our case, some of them is about one-on-one, some of them about sentiment analysis, and so on. But what I see the AI trend is moving is actually helping people to do another area of work easier. People know that as well. I also teach in a university. I teach entrepreneurship, but it's not like startup style. It's more like, because when I was in Bain, I do venture building. So it's basically helping them to understand how a big company to do innovation as well. And what we see that is a lot of people I teach are designers, and they don't know how to do coding in their past life. But now with all the AI tools like V0, like Lovable, like Webplate, like Bolt, they can now start to do some development, make it a lot easier. So I feel like AI is really helpful for people who can do something that they know that they can never do before. And what we believe that is basically here, the reason why we build a manager tool is that a lot of managers, they actually not familiar with AI. A lot of people will help out. They actually don't know how to do that. And we want to empower these people to have a new ability to do things that they don't know how to do before. And in our heart, we don't think we want to replace human being, and I don't think AI can do it, at least for now. So that's why we are not branding ourselves as an AI to replace managers. We don't brand that because we believe that AI is still an assistant to helping a human being. And the last thing about the AI trend is in the conference, I think someone says something very exciting is like actually AI can almost replace all my jobs, and we think that maybe there's, I don't know, like this is some feeling that I feel we feel that as well. I feel that AI start to do a lot of work we can't do before, but now they can do it. And yeah, I don't know, but this is like really hard to answer. But we still believe that human being is very important. This whole reason why we do this startup, because of that we think that AI can help people. So yeah, but Keith, what do you think?
Yeah, Keith.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, maybe the agentic AI is the way the people solve the problem with a smarter way. Maybe we can say it is a smarter automation of work, of solving a task. So if there's a problem day by day, and then I think AI actually cannot replace people, really replace human, because there's a lot of problem we need to solve. AI is just a tool for us to leverage to solve the problems.
Yeah, I love that. It is just a tool. And I think, there's a lot of talk about it replacing jobs. And and some of the big companies don't help. They're saying they're getting rid of junior developers, et cetera, because the tools can do it. But I fundamentally believe, whilst, I think exactly what you both were saying, AI is an enabler. It's not at all a replacement. I think, the only thing to be worried about is AI won't replace your job, but somebody using AI properly will be better at your job than you if you don't use it. So I don't think you can get left behind, I think. But it's a tool. It's purely just a tool, like so many other tools we've had before to help. And I hope, because all too often the demos that we see in the AI space are like, writing songs and creating images and doing all this lovely stuff that, in fact, I don't want AI to do. I want AI to do the boring stuff, right? So that I can create graphics and pictures and videos and things and let it do the mundane stuff. But I think that's really good. The one thing I always love to do with, go ahead.
You remind me something that's very interesting. I remember when I was in the conference, the people would ask like, what's your favorite technology? And a lot of people would say AI, right? And when a person asked me like, what's your favorite technology? I asked them, like, is it for today or for yesterday or for years before? And because I told you that I used to be a designer, so my favorite technology is always pen and paper. And that's what we believe as well. Like a lot of people in the very old days, they believe that pen is going to replace a lot of people, because before that, we don't think they don't think that pen exists, right? But for us, we think that now pen is basically part of our daily life. We use pen to write things, and some of them we don't use it anymore because we use computer. We don't use it as well. So I think that for AI is basically something similar, like you mentioned, like we should start to embrace it instead of just worry that AI is going to take my job away. Maybe you just use it like a pen, like a technology, that embrace it, use it in our daily life, which we're trying to use it ourselves as well. So that's why, but this is a way that we don't want to say it. We don't normally want to say it, because when we say it, the people think that we are going to sell them our software. Start embracing AI, and then they'll be like, are you going to convince me to use L10?
I think I think it is just a tool. I know Steve Jobs years ago used to say a computer is like a bicycle for the mind. It's the same, it's a tool, right? I think it's how we use it and what we use it for, and how we get the good out of it, as it were. Before we go, and I'm conscious of time for yourselves, having two founders on the show with me is always really good. What lessons did you learn building L10? You were both in big companies and you jumped out of the security of that for all the reasons that you mentioned at the beginning. But as startups and as founders, what's the key lesson building L10 that you might have wished you'd have known earlier, or what kind of any key learnings? We have a lot of kind of startup and developers join this stream, and they'd love to hear from you.
And I think as a technical founder, maybe a lot of technical guys will focus on how to implement it, how to make the software awesome or performance. But I think the most important thing is to understand the user. Like if you build a software that is perfect, but there's no people or no one want to use it, I think it's waste. It's just waste of your effort to doing that. So I think focus stay on solving the problem of your customer is the key thing for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're going to share whatever in the books because we really experienced it ourselves. Like we pivoted, I don't know, more than 10 times. Yeah, and we always think that this product is going to work, but it's not. So I think, but you heard that as well. Like I think every founder knew that. Like they say that don't focus on the first product, try and test with user. We made a lot of mistakes. Like before, I remember there's one product we built it for like 2 months and it didn't work, and we shouldn't do that. But we're like, no way, this is not working. And we talked to a lot of users in our interview. This is the problem we're solving for them. But I feel like for us, the biggest learning probably is we prepare ourselves to pivot a lot, and we're still pivoting today. There's no way that it's the final product. We all know that it's not. We hope that it's not. We hope that the product will be a lot better. So we're prepared to pivot. And
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Prepare to pivot. Yeah, I used to, before MongoDB, I used to work with a lot of startups as well too, and all too often, they get really stuck in their idea, and they don't want to launch it. They don't want to put it out there publicly because they don't want any real world feedback, because that would maybe make them pivot or derail their plans. And it's like, just get it out there, see what people give you the feedback on, see what they use it. I think the key question I used to tell our clients at the time was, ask somebody, would they pay for that? Because that's really the key thing, is like, yeah, everyone loves this, it's a great platform. Would you put your hand in your wallet and pay for it? That changes the conversation quite quickly as well.
Yeah,
too.
I think for us is, would someone just pay it without talking to you? We have a user just randomly go into a website and just pay it without contacting us. I think that's a really big thing for us. Yes. Like suddenly there's a payment going to a Stripe account.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's a massive buzz that you had no previous contact with that. They came on their account. Brilliant. Yeah. I love that. I love that. So listen, I think we covered an awful lot. It's been great to hear your journey, the inception of L10, that level 10. These are the things that you should be concerned about at these meetings. And this is the tool that's built to help grab those, and why you keep pivoting as well too, and add more features. And as you do, and maybe in 8 months or a year, I get you both back on the show again. Let's see what L10 has become now as well too. And Keith, you encapsulated all the good stuff about why choose MongoDB, so I'm not going to go back over any of that. Where can people learn more about L10? How do they get started? You mentioned kind of somebody, the buzz of somebody finding it and signing up for the service. So get the plug out there. Where do they go?
Yeah, so we created one page. But you can go to that. Like, I think for today we prepared an offer page. Our website is called l10.tech, but if you go to l10.tech/MongoDB, you can get free credit to try our software.
Excellent. Grand. Do you want to bring that up there, and I'll put it into the comments well too.
Maybe I put it on our private chat.
Perfect.
The l10.tech and MongoDB. We should have launched it before the call. If not, we'll launch the website right after the call. We should have done that. But as a startup, basically we have 1,000 things on our reminder list.
Yeah, you see, this is proper live stuff going on. This is so folks who are joining us and seeing the comments, I'll post that into LinkedIn now shortly as well too. Not live yet. I'm getting a 404.
No, okay. Then we're going to check it right after the call.
Perfect. No, that's brilliant. So if they go there, do they get? Yeah, if they go there, they'll get some credits to get started.
Yeah, we prepare like 1,000 US credits, so I think it's enough to use it for quite a while.
Excellent. Well, listen, that's a brilliant call to action towards the end of the stream as well too. Hopefully everybody goes there. So it's for those joining and watching and maybe not looking at the comments, l10.tech/MongoDB. So please go there and try it out. Hopefully you'll have great success. Any last words then, Zirian or Keith, for our audience before we go for today?
I think I always say that in a talk that just be a better leader, not a manager. trying to care about every single person in your team. There's no low performers. It's just you haven't helped them enough in your team.
Yeah, I think that's key.
Yeah, maybe I can give some works to maybe the startup founder attending this webinar or this live stream. I want to say that emotionally, there's a lot of up and downs as a startup founder, and yeah, I think all of us need to believe your idea, and then don't give up.
Believe the team. Exactly.
Yeah.
We say that all the time.
Well, I love all the content of what we chatted about today. I love the fact that you two were in school together as young boys and all the way up, and then have founded this as well too. You know, went your separate ways and back together as well too. But above all, thank you so much for joining me and sharing how L10 helps organizations and managers in particular listen better and lead smarter as well too. So that's brilliant. Thank you for everybody who joined us on the live stream as well too. It is being recorded, so you'll be able to catch up. And the link is there as well, l10.tech/MongoDB when you turn it on to make it some credits available to you. But for everybody else, it's been a pleasure, Zirian and Keith, to have you on the show. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your effort and the insights and the knowledge that you shared. So thank you so much for joining the MongoDB podcast. And for everyone else, we do this every Tuesday or so, or I do it most Tuesdays anyway. So just like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll get alerts for more shows like this coming your way. But for now, from me in Ireland and Zirian and Keith in Hong Kong, it's been a pleasure to have you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for today.
Thank you.